Johannes from Avatar. Glory to our king. This is Mediator.
You just got back from Russia. You played in St. Petersburg and Moscow, and you've been there before, right?
Yeah, once before.
So how was it this time? Has it changed since last time?
It definitely has, because this time, number one, we did... so we were there once before for St. Petersburg and Moscow, same two cities. Moscow, last time, we were opening for this Russian heavy metal band we hadn't heard about, but they had a big anniversary, Aria. So this was our first headline show in Moscow, and the place was full, packed, so it was amazing. And St. Petersburg was bigger than before as well, and just... I don't know, it felt like it has felt on many locations now on this tour, where it has been many places have turned more legit, because we made a big deal with booking agents. We have tried for many years to just have the people we work with understand that we need to prioritize getting further east. So that includes Russia, that included Hungary, for instance, and finally it felt like people have been listening to us, and we were able to do some things and follow some things, and each of those more Eastern European shows have been amazing. So we were proven right to do it like this, and that means it will be much, much easier to come back now in the future.
Yeah, and probably so even bigger tour plans in Russia, like Siberia? Or maybe?
No, right now it's too far away to say what next tour is gonna be, because basically we are honestly at the end of the Avatar country touring cycle, more or less now, which means there are a lot of things that will happen in between before we know exactly what we're gonna do. But what we know now is that Russia has opened up for us, so now we can start to see what more places there is to go in the future.
About Finland, I mean, it was quite a while since you played here, until last summer you did a show at Rockfest. So what was it that changed that you decided to then come back and now try for the headlining shows?
It was never a question about decision. It's basically what happened. Once it's been long enough ago that you have played in a country, unless you're AC/DC or something, it is almost as if you never went. In terms of, again, partnership with booking agencies or whatever, promoters and stuff. So it's all about, trying to reopen that door. And it can seem to be quite impossible until the day it happens. In this case, Rockfest was the thing that finally happened, that opened the door a little bit for us. Now we are doing these two Finnish shows that we feel are, that we are definitely holding our own in terms of the people will show up, and it's a good starting point for now to start to become more a natural part of our normal touring cycle. Because I guess that's always the thing, like once you need to get that first spark going in a place, and then no one is questioning whether or not Avatar will go to France on the next album, because there we have become so well established. Same for UK or most parts of the United States, and a bunch of places. But to do that, it's been a struggle for us to push towards with certain countries to have that relationship as well. But I feel now here in Finland, it's going to end up that we do well enough for it to become, again, this natural part of the touring cycle. And that's always the key.
So, and then you recently started to fund your own movie project via Kickstarter, and I mean, you got way more than your original goal was. So, is there anything you can tell us about the plot or when it's gonna come out?
I don't have a release date at this point. I have seen some footage and imagery from it. Johan is working like crazy on it. Johan Kalén, who is of course the guy who have done videos with now since Black Waltz. And it's now in his hand, piecing it together with all the animations, turning the green screens into things and editing and all that. It's going really well, but it takes time, and we have some different options that we look at in terms of what platform to release things on. And we're still kind of putting that into place, and since we don't have that exactly figured out yet, it will be a little while before we can give a proper release date. speaking of that, it was through our Kickstarter campaign. The number one priority is that we find that those had a handful of people that made it actually literally possible for us to make it. They will make sure that they see it first of all as soon as we possibly can, and then we will follow up. Make the rest of the world watch it, whether they want to or not.
Yeah, good plan. So, and then lately, your latest two albums have been concept albums.
Yeah.
So, are you planning on continuing with that, or going back to what you used to do?
Well, neither, I would say, because we never planned to make two concept albums in a row. The whole idea with Feathers and Flesh was that we had. The reason we decided to do it like that is that we had no idea what it would mean to make a concept album. That was the challenge. What would be different? So it was yet another way for us to make it hard to make an album, which is we always at least try to keep that in mind, to keep some kind of challenge, to keep us more hungry and put some pressure on us. So it feels like we want to feel like beginners, because usually many bands release their best work when they're super young and it's the first couple of albums, and there's something to be said about being hungry, ambitious, and a bit of a beginner and an explorer in what you do.
Yeah.
And we try it now, but through the years you learn things, and we get better at I guess better at articulating ourselves, and just keeping a challenge going is a way to keep an edge on it. So that was the reason we did Feathers and Flesh. Then we were supposed to absolutely not do a concept album, but then the whole Avatar Country idea and vision just grew and grew and grew until you also had to follow your inspiration, and that turns out therefore it was in many ways our most focused and easiest album to make. We were in the studio for 2 weeks, which is very, very short for us, but instead the challenge became do we have the courage or the confidence to do this? Because basically what we have done is, from my point of view, we wrote it's a comedy and a series of albums that tend to be rather tragedies in one form or another. So it's not supposed to be another concept album, but to go back how things were is also. It's never the idea. That's another thing we are saying. Never write the same song twice, and we don't work with formulas. It's again I was thinking about this the other day. What I feel that we're doing in terms of writing is that, at least my songwriting is based around a lot about learning new things or implementing new things, and treat ourselves as a beginner. And therefore, once we figure out, a song with a certain vibe, once we start to get good at it, I lose interest in trying to do that again. Then you need to find a twist in one form or another to have it be just something that is hard for us in one way or another. So it will be different. We don't follow formulas.
Yeah. But then you've had the same imagery in your band with the whole theatrics and the makeup since Black Waltz. But how do you feel like since Black Waltz, how you have evolved as a whole and as a collective? Yeah,
and I think, visual-wise, it's still something that it keeps on staying with us because we still feel it makes sense, and it still is a good way of showing what we feel our music looks like. And I think it's pretty clear that depending on what we decide to wear and what we build around it, that the face paint and all of that still can be applied to a whole bunch of different ways that different form of expressions. It also, of course, with Black Waltz, when you had the song Black Waltz on it and it smells like a freak show, at that point it was pretty obvious, hey, scary clown and freaks and circus music and ta-da, but once it evolved, I feel like this has come, that the visual aspect has evolved with it, and apparently with Feathers and Flesh I fit perfectly in the forest as well with my face paint, so it works, it makes sense, and it has become just again part of the visual expression, which we treat as just as important as the music.
Yeah. And then you just announced that you're going on a tour with a few bands, and one of them is the Devin Townsend project, the acoustic version. Yeah. So how did all that come about? You know Devin?
We have met a couple of times. I spent more time with what used to be Devin Townsend project, because that doesn't exist anymore. He disbanded that, but we have become very good friends with the whole band, and also, gotten to know Devin himself a little bit. Well, it was something that was in the making, and then at some point it was not in the making anymore. But then I personally actually reached out to him, not to try to convince him to change his mind, but it still seemed like I kind of did, and it happened very quickly then, just through us talking about it, what it could and should and would be like. So it was between us, and then management took it from there. And for me, it's amazing. I'm a long-time super fan, and I will be on my best behavior on the tour, not to bother him about it. I know at some point I've gone to parties where, when I arrive out in the garden and it's a barbecue, and when I arrive someone turns on Let It Burn and looks at me like and it's like, yeah, sure, I've heard it, and I will not do that, but I'm still very, very happy to have him there. It feels weird that he's opening for us. I will learn to live with that, and no, it's very, very cool. We're very honored to have him there.
Have you ever considered playing with the name Avatar, to open up kind of the meaning behind it?
How do you mean?
For example, what the meaning of the word avatar as a
god that manifests on Earth in the shape of a human or animal. Well, John named the band when he was 14, and I had nothing to do with it. No, but I think our interpretation still what it means today, which again goes hand in hand with our whole philosophy of how we make albums and stuff, is it became a metaphor to us for just to try to unlock our own hidden potential as human beings, and that I feel we are doing, in the sense that we are making it really, really hard for ourselves, that we always want to be challenged and find more and more challenging products, the more comfortable or the better we get at whatever we try to get better at. But to do a literal thing of it, I don't know, maybe it's nothing I've been thinking about right now, but I also haven't felt very spiritual for many, many years. So that's part of it. I think there are some lyrics probably on the two first albums that had more of a literal idea of this in mind, a spiritual idea of our place in the universe. I would say that Wildflower or 1113 or probably a couple more that has that in it more back then than now. But never say never. I did travel to India recently, so let's see.
I mean, it sounds like it might be a lot of ideas behind that, such a kind of vast word if you think about it, but many ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
there are many things I want to write about right now. Right now, actually, I'm more, because we have been, in the kingdom of Avatar country, and we have been in the forest with a bunch of birds and stuff. I'm very interested in I don't know, cartwheels, windshields, ferry traffic. I don't know, things here and now.
Yeah, coming back to reality.
Yeah. And then now that I sit and write lyrics, it doesn't end up being like that at all. But I know that is something I would like to do more of.
Yeah. And what about, would you like to tour with Hellzapoppin again?
I would love to do something with them again at some point. And I know people many would probably like that a lot. It was a great, fun thing to do, and it turns the evening to a variety show, which is something we are also doing now when you consider we have a one-man orchestra playing, and we have a Irish punk band. So we still have a bit of that through the whole Avatar country thing we've been doing. But it's also, I have a feeling that we have not worked together for the last time, but I think it needs to take some time before we do it again.
Yeah.
For it needs to feel special every time, and it was extremely special to do it.
Yeah. And then you done a lot of different merch for considering Avatar country and kind of special. But recently you also did a video about it. You had released some hot sauce.
Oh yeah.
Where did that idea come from?
It was actually pitched by the guy who makes them works on our US label E1, and he wanted to work with bands before, and bands. It's when you do those things, when you use your band name as a brand. And all bands do it, they release beers or whatever. And I think the challenge is everyone can release a beer, and it makes different levels of sense depending on who's doing it. And I personally, I don't think we would be the right band for a beer, but it was fun to do something, and this fell into our lap where it makes perfect sense. Hey, we like hot food, and because it's a bottle of a liquid from the king, you can do some really, really dirty jokes about it, and all those things just fell into place with that one. So it came from there, and he really took his time to figure out what would represent us in a good way. So there's lots of blueberry in there because we're from Sweden, like with Finland is Nordic countries, and blueberries make sense, and so just all these different things that made it fall into place and make sense. It's very, very hot.
Yeah, I could see that from the video. That. Yeah, but thank you. That was
thank you very much.
Yes.